Welcome everybody to the DC New 52 review. I want to thank you for tuning into another episode. I am your host, Pauly DC, and let's get into another one of these things. Today I will review the Savage Hawkman Vol.1. It was titled Darkness Rising, and it was written by Tony S. Daniel, with art by Philip Tan and James Bonny, with the first 8 issues being released between November 2011 to June of 2012. Hawkman's got a couple iterations and origins, those of Carter Hall, first appearing in Flash Comics number 1, January 1940 by Gardner Fox and Dennis Neville, and then there's Katar Hall hitting the scene in the Brave and the Bold number 34, February 1961 by Mr. Fox and Joe Kubert. The New 52 sort of took the straightforward attempt at this, making a couple background points of interest from his 70 years of existence and trying to build on them. They involved his archaeology education, having armor and weapons made of a special substance called nth metal, exclusive to the planet Thanagar, which grant him lots of powers. I'm leaving a lot of stuff out because there are entire videos on this complicated character out there, and since this is an 8-issue book, I need to get going. Issue number 1 starts in New York as Carter Hall drives into the woods so he can dispose of his Hawkman gear with some alcohol and a bullet. Well, that is one way to start things. The costume does not appreciate this, blazing up Phoenix style. Fast fact, the Bennu of Egyptian mythology is commonly linked to the Phoenix origin, and Hawkman has had ties to Egyptian prince Khufu through reincarnation. The flaming bird lashes out at Carter while he lets us know that he's been using the armor for multiple years now, and it looks to be consuming him. An unspecified amount of time then goes by, taking us out to the Bermuda coast, where a Professor Ziegler and his research team have just discovered the remnants of an alien shipwreck. I'm more of an unknown water entity guy, opposed to thinking aliens are behind the Bermuda Triangle, but anyway, Ziegler is actually the boss of Carter, who is a cryptology expert, and tasks a guy named Terrence to find him. He does so shortly later, locating Hall at his really ugly apartment, right as he's seen waking up from what looks like a very long nap. Terrence says the boss is looking for him, so Carter heads to Ziegler's hidden lab, where we meet the prof's daughter, Emma, who has already been acquainted to our main character, and they both want him to analyze symbols on the alien ship, plus some that are on a pod that was found inside of it. What's in the pod is way more important now, because thoughts of an alien mummy inside get nixed when a black slime is extracted, which becomes violent and kills 2 scientists. I'm fighting to not make a Venom reference at this moment. Carter tries to kill it, but in Hydra fashion, new creatures grow from the original's injuries, and then, in a shock even to him, the nth metal armor suddenly returns to Carter in symbiotic fashion, giving us the first look at New 52 Hawkman. A fight starts with him and the top black slime creature, calling itself Morpheus, and it grabs Hawkman, saying it can absorb and expend energy using this ability to drain him, thus morphing into its own hawk-like monster, wings and all. Issue number 2 picks up right from the previous one. Morpheus is trying to absorb all of Hawkman's power, but the big flame hawk returns to fend it off, causing the energy that was stolen to become too much. A pretty good first act fight commences with us getting a look at Hawkman's strength and durability. I'd say it was great, but things cut early with hardly an explanation, as Morpheus says he now controls some nth metal and flies off, only to be found by a strange looking guy called Waker, who claims he's something called a Vexaphon and says Morphe is a Xenutian, 2 alien races who were at war. We'll get back to this a little later though. Carter has been admitted to the hospital due to passing out after his recent fight, and Emma is the first to greet him. He then speaks with Professor Ziegler, taking some photos of the symbols that were originally supposed to be deciphered, while Terrence thinks everyone is forgetting that whatever came out of that alien ship murdered 2 people. That's fair. Carter is then left alone for a minute, and suddenly his nth metal armor whisks him away as Hawkman so he can save himself from being evicted from his apartment by offering landlord Mr. Gomez one of his archaeology trinkets. Guy isn't starting out as the coolest hero and also has horrible work practices. Later that night at Hall's apartment, Emma shows up with takeout while he tries his deciphering, which has looked to have turned his eyes a funky black color. She then kinda gets the cold shoulder with brief talk of Prof. Ziegler having Alzheimer's, maybe important for later, and then she accuses Carter of being a secret agent because of his recent behavior. And wow, he sure as hell doesn't have good cover stories. Over in a different part of New York, inside of a building belonging to the Non-Lethal Alternative Studies, it's about to be shut down by some government suits, so company higher-up Hogarth Kane, no relation to David or Cassandra, his surname is spelled Kane, and his assistant Ascana have to assure new results. The two then enter a lab where Waker had tricked Morpheus into going, but when talk of freakish experiments and extinction viruses commence, Waker objects, so Ascana shows herself to be a reptilian creature shapeshifter and kills him. Issue number 3 opens on Carter returning to Ziegler's shutdown lab, and on the outside he sets off an alien hologram device with a message from a small blue alien who's a part of something called the High Council, and has warning about Morpheus being very dangerous, but he does have a weakness which we won't hear about now because the recording gets cut short just before it's revealed and then it self-destructs. Classic. Morpheus is seen next on the operating table where Hogarth tells him he's interested in the Xenutians' many abilities, so Ascana gets the go-ahead to slice and dice. Oh no, the very evil energy-stealing alien is getting tortured. Don't do it. No. Carter pays Emma and her father a visit to share some of the new findings, leading into suspicion being put on Terrence for a certain alien liberation. Now, the following scene is sort of all over the place. Hawkman just finds Terrence with no reason said as to how, right while the guy is shooting some kind of slime dog that Hawkman says nothing about, instead savagely putting Terrence's face through a windshield after asking him who he really works for only once, and then flies off with him when a deal is made. Hawkman is taken to Morpheus, where Kane and Ascana have finished their crude medical operations on him right before the lab is crashed, allowing us to see full reptile Ascana defend it. Hawkman subdues her with a single punch, and when holding her up by the throat, she claims Terrence is no human, but actually a walking plague that Morpheus needed, and when they connect, Golden Morpheus is born. Why was this all needed or necessary? I don't know, and I don't care. Issue number 4 kicks off with Hawkman and Ascana now fighting Morpheus together, ripping off crow-like heads of his minions while also trying to defeat the main source. Hawkman puts up a good fight, but finds out halfway through his nth metal is actually helping Morphe. Well, without that, he's borderline useless, so what are we supposed to do here? Also, why would you confirm this, Morpheus? That was beyond stupid. Whatever, he does importantly mention Thanagar for the first time here, which is unknown to Carter. Next thing we see is Dr. Kane collecting special samples from a cryo chamber and trying to get the now not dead Waker to help him. Okay then. After this, Ascana is seen taking on Morpheus alone, which nearly gets her consumed, but Hawkman rescues her at the last second, even though he was seen getting consumed 2 pages ago with no sign to us that he broke free. Hawkman then gets Hogarth's location from Ascana, then ditches her. Hey, any backup is good backup, but he doesn't seem to think so. Alas, in the middle of Dr. Kane having his life force energy drained by Morpheus, Hawkman interrupts looking for another fight. They crash through the building, ending up in a cryogenic lab, and this is exactly what Hawkman wanted, saying he found an alien High Council message to Morpheus, who shouldn't be that shocked considering he was already told this. But anyhow, it's been realized extreme cold is what can stop Morpheus, resulting in Hawkman simply freezing him with cryoliquid. That conclusion was, well, it was a conclusion. Hawkman then briefly meets Waker, who calls him Katar Hall as he flies off to intercept the fleeing Dr. Kane in a helicopter that gets torn up immediately, sending the pilot and cockpit down. Hogarth pleads, but is still left in the sky after his briefcase of special samples is taken. Yes, for anyone wondering, Hawkman for sure just murdered 2 people. On the last pages, Carter is seen walking the streets with Emma, and in reverse They Live fashion, when he takes off his sunglasses, people appear as flesh-rotted zombies. Oh boy. Issue number 5 is the beginning of a new plotline. Carter is still seeing everyone around him, including Emma, as decaying zombies, so without good reason, he runs away. If Emma doesn't think you're a government agent anymore, she definitely still thinks you're a nutcase. As Hawkman, he flies to his apartment where we meet his neighbor named Singh, who we'll be seeing more of in a minute because Carter gets called to Professor Ziegler's for an important job request to decipher a special book, and when Hall gets a good look at it, his eyes begin to glow yellow. This is also accompanied by visions telling him about warlocks who use something called the Mortis Orb to fight off evil spirits, and then it was given to a dark stranger. You could have just said Phantom Stranger. Carter takes the book home after being told a gentleman named Jim Craddock is its owner, and while inspecting it with Singh present, evil spirits look to be outside the window, causing Carter to try and save Singh, but he ends up just looking like a jackass instead. There was also some book background shown, with it being located in a rare reading material shop. The owner, Mr. Digby, was approached and smacked around by a ghostly figure saying they are interested in the Mortis Orb and want the special book deciphered. So Digby was forced to take it to Ziegler. Thanks to Hawkman making this connection, Darius Digby is paid a visit in order to be part of some of the worst interrogation methods I've ever seen. It ain't nothing but rudimentary excessive force. Anyhow, some useful info is learned, but halfway through their chat, many evil spirits arrive to attack Hawkman, drawing blood early while he can't even touch them, much to the pleasure of their master, Jim Craddock, the Gentleman Ghost. Issue number 6 confirms early that Carter's zombie visions are connected to all this Gentleman Ghost and Mortis Orb book business. That character is an underrated villain for me who has been around since October 1947's Flash Comics number 88 by Robert Kanigher and Joe Kubert. Gentleman Ghost now says that he needs Hawkman's nth metal to find this Mortis Orb while they fight for the first time, but after some evil spirit minions of his attack, Hawkman chooses a retreat and takes Mr. Digby with him, so he can inquire where the special book that started all this came from. I like how earlier the guy was saying he bought it because it was cheap to now, oh, its previous owner was a warlock. I'd say that's pretty damn critical and crucial information. This warlock's name was Julius Gates, and his haunted-looking mansion and widowed wife Abigail are paid a visit, where she gives information that the Mortis Orb is buried with her late husband in a nearby cemetery. Under all of those circumstances, I feel like a ghost would have a massive advantage, but whatever. Hawkman takes Digby to the gravesite of Julius and shows he's not the most loquacious type when it comes to why he does the hero thing. It's not long before the Mortis Orb is recovered, but just as Digby warned, it contains unimaginable power that is displayed right away when an army of the dead arises due to it being near nth metal. Ah, so that's why Gentleman Ghost let Hawkman find it, so his armor could reactivate it. The old getting your competition to do all the hard work for you. Gentleman Ghost is then able to steal the Mortis Orb while Hawkman is killing a horde of zombies, and when he's done chopping them down, he heads after his new foe, only to find New York City looking like Raccoon City now. Issue number 7 continues on with the zombie invasion of New York, and I gotta mention this quick. In issue number 1, Carter claimed he's been Hawkman for years, but when he makes a very public appearance, news outlets and the general public don't know who he is. This is a massive plot hole, with even the opening 6 comics featuring lots of him flying around the entire New York state, yet no one seems interested or even notices him like he's already a known presence. Just another example of even the creatives not knowing how each character was to be established in the unseen 5-year setup for the New 52. Moving on though, Hawkman gets to play Dying Light for real, bashing zombies and parkouring around, while the public calls him Falcon and Eagle Man, which at first seemed a bit corny, but it was to set up Virgil Hawkins, aka Static, one of the only other heroes based in New York, to get it right and call him Hawkman after they run into each other due to the zombies. Carter tells Virgil about his part in the Mortis Orb unleashing all the dead things, to which he responds quite simply and appropriately too. The duo then decide to team up, since Static's electric powers seem to be an Achilles heel to the zombies, who are next seen converging in Central Park, so that is where they go, finding Gentleman Ghost doing a Mortis Orb ritual. Static deals with the zombies while Hawkman draws some sabers against more evil spirits, this time being able to damage them for some reason. As for the climax, it draws heavy inspiration from Indiana Jones regarding our main character hardly having to be part of the final outcome for it to result in the way it does. Explanation: the highly powerful and not so friendly spirit of Julius Gates emerges out of literally nowhere, sensing the Mortis Orb in Gentleman Ghost's hands, and drags him along with all his minions back to the other side, right after Hawkman is able to get his hands on the magical object. Raiders of the Lost Orb indeed. The Mortis Orb doesn't end up in an old storage warehouse, as Static asks Hawkman what he'll do with it. Instead, it is taken to the Arctic, where he drops this wildly powerful item that surely should be taken to people who can safeguard it, into a deep glacier pit. Let me just get to these last pages. Carter heads home to find Emma and Sing waiting for him. The scene of those two meeting happened in issue 6, and while they chat, it is seen on TV that Hawkman is now public news. This knowledge has him needing to clear his head, and when in costume, flying around the Empire State Building, he is ambushed by Ascana. Issue number 8 concludes this volume, beginning with Hawkman and Ascana fighting. They trade some blows, however, it is not long before he has her by the throat, ready to deliver a killing blow, but a plea for help spares her. Ascana goes on to tell Hawkman that she sniffed him out with one of her 12 senses. I'm rather curious to know the other 11, but anyway, she claims not to be of Earth, and there are deadly agents of her homeworld here now as well, wanting to collect her. Hawkman doesn't seem to care or buy Askana's story, so she says, "Ugh, just kill me. It's better that way." And because of these dramatics, he changes his mind. A quick scene of Carter with Emma follows this, basically for us to see Professor Ziegler's deteriorating mental status, and more of Emma and Mr. Hall's, if I'm being honest, poorly presented attempt at a girl likes boy but boy doesn't realize it relationship. While dusk approaches, Hawkman suits up to meet Askana, where they begin to spy on a trio of supposed enemies to her, and she gives our titular hero a little psychoanalysis regarding how he is mean, aggressive, and rough around the edges. Nothing new. This talking costs them a surprise opportunity since the three agent aliens get the drop on them instead, kicking off a big fight finale. Hawkman and Askana make a good team, complementing each other's moves and faults, except after the threat is dealt with, Hawkman has realized he was really the target, and Askana was forced to bring him to them, having actually been High Council alien members from that hologram message we saw earlier, and they wanted to kill Carter due to his part in releasing Morpheus. In conclusion, he's pissed that she just messed around with his feelings and flies away, leaving her behind. Alright. The plot mixed together a few things well, connecting Carter's archaeologist background to Hawkman for both storylines, but nothing was insanely unique, considering alien threats were popping up in every other title, but because of Hawkman's Thanagarian ties, it's necessary here. If you got rid of all the scenes with Emma and Carter regarding their whatever relationship, you'd literally lose nothing. I actually feel inclined to say the old Hawkster is one of those characters you feel a bit bad for, being around so long yet has never really reached A-tier status. Major bummer for me since I'm a huge fan of Tony Daniel's art, and his opening storytelling run on Detective Comics was way better than this one in my opinion. And in case you were wondering, was there a good solid reason as to why Hawkman torched his costume right off the bat? No. Some quick final thoughts for the dialogue. There was a lot of internal stuff from Carter, and it varied from good at times to not good at others. That's the simplest way I can put it. A bit immature and insipid at times. There was Singh asking, "You hidden that?" after seeing Emma's interest in Mr. Hall, and this was the first time we saw that character. Morpheus had lots of generic villain threats. There was definitely savage notes to Hawkman's speech, except he got kinda close to the 90s X-Men cartoon Wolverine, if that reference makes sense. Lastly, for the art, the crop of villains was solid and I liked all their designs, Gentleman Ghost the most. Hawkman was a standout of all the New 52 heroes for me. His look is pretty stellar here. Either than that, the rest of things just weren't doing it for me personally. Maybe it was that some stuff didn't look finished, or maybe that some of the human characters, cough, Emma cough, looked a bit wonky. I will end things on a good note and say thanks to growing up watching Gargoyle, Spider-Man, and the 2003 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles series. I enjoy series that take place in New York and all the awesome art to display that setting, which was done nicely here. So with that, I want to personally thank anyone who has watched until the end here, and to please like, share, and subscribe. Please follow me on all my social media platforms, and to please join me next time for Wonder Woman Volume 1.